Death Story.
Mortis Media. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Storytelling Channel. Tonight I have a scary story. Mysterious, creepy, strange, scary stories from cemeteries. I am also very happy to be the storyteller tonight. I hope to bring you an interesting story. Thank you. If you find this story interesting, please give me a like and share, so I have more motivation to make the latest videos. Now I will take you to this scary story, and don't forget to prepare yourself mentally when listening. In a remote Appalachian town, there lies a forgotten cemetery, ancient, fenced with rusted iron and choked with weeds. Locals speak of a gravekeeper who died over 80 years ago, yet never left. They say he still patrols the grounds after midnight, lantern in hand, walking slowly between the headstones. Several have claimed to see him from the hill above, the dim glow of his lantern moving steadily through the graveyard, even in pouring rain or snow. But here's the thing. If you step inside the cemetery after dark and hear the dragging sound of footsteps, you must never look back. One teenager did. His name was Micah. He brought a camera and dared to stay overnight. The next morning, he was gone, vanished. All that remained was his phone, found lying near the gate, recording. On the footage, a voice, faint but clear. "I see you. Don't turn around." Then silence, then breathing, then a single final whisper. Too late. It happened in a rural cemetery outside of Charleston. An old gravedigger named Eli claimed he'd been hearing things for weeks, knocking. Not footsteps, not whispers. Knocking, always 3 knocks, always from underground. Eli said it started after they buried a woman named Dorothy Kane, who died unexpectedly in her sleep. The family rushed the burial, and the autopsy was never completed. A week later, Eli heard it. Knock, knock, knock. He thought it was rats. Then it came again, and again, always in 3s, always at night. He finally told the priest, who agreed to be there one night. They waited in silence by her grave. At 2:37 a.m., just as the wind stilled, knock, knock, knock. The priest turned white. "Exhume her," he said. When they dug up Dorothy's coffin, the lid was scratched from the inside. Her fingernails were broken. Her mouth was open. There's a small, overgrown graveyard in northern Maine, surrounded by pine trees and forgotten by time. The locals call it Dead Man's Hollow. Teenagers go there for dares, especially to find one grave in particular. It belongs to a man named Walter Griggs. The tombstone is cracked, covered in moss, but what makes it infamous is the whispers. People say if you kneel by Walter's grave at midnight and stay completely silent, you'll hear a voice, a soft, broken whisper. Some say it pleads, "Help me, please." Others say it warns, "He's still down here." One girl, Lena, tried it. Her friends dared her to kneel and listen. She came back running, shaking, saying the voice knew her name. A week later, she went missing. Her shoes were found beside Walter's grave, and carved into the dirt near the headstone was a single word: stay. In Louisiana, nestled deep within the bayou, there is a forgotten cemetery known only to the oldest locals. Hidden by swamp fog and twisted trees, it holds a grave marked with no name, only a crude stone carving of a smiling face. No one remembers who was buried there, no records, no family, just that creepy, childish grin etched into the tombstone. The story goes, anyone who mocks the grave begins to smile too. Not in joy, but in madness. A man named Royce once filmed a TikTok mocking the grave, laughing and spitting on the stone. That night, his girlfriend said he stared at himself in the mirror for hours, grinning. The next morning, she found him dead, smiling from ear to ear. His lips had been torn at the corners, like someone tried to make the smile bigger. The video? Deleted. But the grave still stands. And if you listen closely at night, some say you can hear giggling from beneath the soil. Every cemetery has that grave, the one no one visits, the one people cross themselves near without knowing why. At Greystone Cemetery in Pennsylvania, that grave is plot 13. Unmarked, untended, cold. But if you pass it at exactly 3:13 a.m., you'll see something standing beside it. Not a person, not a ghost, a shadow. Tall, thin, wrong. It doesn't move unless you blink. Some say they felt it watching them as they walked by. Others swear it followed them home, standing in their hallway for nights afterward, never speaking, never blinking. A groundskeeper once tried to salt the grave and say a prayer. That night, he was found inside the chapel, hanging, scratched into the wall beside him in his own handwriting. It stands still when you see it. It moves when you don't. In the late 1800s, people feared being buried alive. So some wealthy families installed safety coffins, equipped with a bell above ground, connected to a string tied around the buried person's wrist. If the dead woke up, they could ring the bell and be rescued. At St. Helena's Cemetery in New York, only one bell ever rang. It was 1894. A girl named Mary Eckhart had died of fever, or so they said. She was only 19. Her father, paranoid, insisted on the safety coffin. 3 days after the burial, just before sunrise, the bell on Mary's grave began to ring. Loud, frantic, the groundskeeper ran to dig, his hands raw, screaming for help. But when they opened the coffin, Mary was dead, her face twisted in terror. Her fingers were torn, her wrists were bloody. And in her other hand, she held the string. The bell was still ringing when they found her. The next night, it rang again. But this time, the string was cut. In the old Edgebrook Cemetery, there is a single plot, Plot 47, that's been reserved for over 100 years. No name, no stone, just a perfect rectangle of untouched earth. The church records say it was prepared in advance, but never used. Over the decades, people noticed something strange. Whenever a funeral passed near Plot 47, the flowers in that patch wilted, the grass turned grey. It was like the grave rejected company. A boy named Samuel once wandered into the cemetery at night on a dare. His friends watched from outside the gate. He laughed, ran across the rows of graves, then stood over Plot 47, pretending to jump in. They laughed with him. But when they looked away for just a second, he was gone. No sound, no scream, nothing. The ground was still flat, no hole, only a single set of footprints leading to the center of the grave, and none coming back out. Story 2. The grave that dug itself. You're sitting by a flickering campfire deep in the woods. But this isn't just any forest. Around you lie ancient gravestones, cracked and crooked, half swallowed by the earth. The smoke rises into the night, curling like fingers into the black sky, and the fire crackles like it's whispering things best left unheard. Tonight I'll share with you 7 true stories, real encounters from cemeteries, places where the dead don't stay buried, and the living sometimes wish they had never entered. So if you're brave enough, listen closely. We begin with story number 1. The Gravekeeper Who Never Slept. In the forgotten Welsh village of Penmaen, time doesn't pass. It rots. No tourists, no phones, no streetlights, only whispers in the wind and the cemetery that watches from the hill. Caretaker Bryn had kept that cemetery for 43 years. He never feared the dead, but in his 44th year, he started to fear the ground. Every morning, same spot, same patch of soil, disturbed, lifted, breathing. Bryn's dreams began on the 3rd week. He dreamt he was underground, fingers digging upward, mouth full of soil. No air, just silence, and the terrifying realization that he had buried himself. He'd wake up sweating, gasping. And every morning, his fingernails were full of black earth. Not a metaphor, real dirt, real terror. He marked the spot. A circle of chalk, a small iron cross, a camera. But in the morning, the chalk was smeared, the cross bent, and the camera lens shattered from within. Where the circle had been was now a perfect empty grave. 6 feet deep, freshly dug. Waiting, Tommy Hill, age 8, disappeared walking home from school. No screams, no footprints. Just his little red backpack, sitting at the edge of the open grave. The police searched for days, but the grave stayed open, like a mouth that refused to close, and the earth around it pressed outward. From the inside, no one came near the graveyard after that, except Bryn. Each night, he sat beside the grave, ear pressed to the ground. And every time, he heard breathing. Rough, wet, slow, hungry. Then one day, Bryn disappeared. No one saw him leave. No notes, nothing but his keys and the grave, filled, neatly, perfectly. A wooden stake was planted next to it. A torn note hung from a nail. Finally, the right one. They say the grave has been quiet ever since, but if you visit Penmaen, locals say on foggy nights you can still hear it. Not voices, not screams, just the ground, breathing, waiting for its next one. Story 3. The Shadows of Bachelor's Grove. I've seen things in the dark, but nothing feels like Bachelor's Grove at night. The air hangs thick, not just with fog, but with memory. Not yours, theirs. They call her the White Lady. She appears only at full moon, sitting on a crumbling tombstone, rocking a phantom baby in her arms. Photographers caught her once, an empty cemetery in daylight. But in the photo, she's there, staring at the camera. No eyes, only a pale face, and a smile like broken porcelain. There used to be a road behind the cemetery. Now it's gone. But some nights, people see it again. A ghost road, leading deeper into the woods. Those who follow say the asphalt melts beneath their feet, and screams come from the trees. No one who walks that path alone ever speaks again. In 1973, locals reported a fire in the cemetery, a huge blaze seen from miles away. But when firefighters arrived, nothing. No flames, no smoke, just a circle of scorched grass and one fresh grave, unmarked. The ground was warm, too warm, like something just climbed out. Visitors talk of eyes behind trees, watching, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. One man claimed he saw a whole row of faces pressed against the bark, screaming silently. He took a photo. There were no faces in the photo, only trees. But later, when he printed it, the bark had mouths. Bachelor's Grove is silent, but only during the day. At night it speaks, through cracking branches, through rustling leaves, through graves that breathe like lungs in the soil. And if you stay past midnight, it will whisper your name. Twice, once from the air, once from behind you. Do not turn around.
Story 4. The Crypt Keeper of New Orleans. When you step into St. Louis Cemetery number 1, you don't hear silence. You hear listening. The air feels old, not stale, ancient. Like you just walked into a room someone's been waiting in for over 100 years. And the thing is, some of the crypts here, they're sealed from the inside. For decades, visitors have reported seeing the same figure. Tall, thin, black coat, wide-brimmed hat, walking the rows of crypts alone. Never speaking, never aging. He's been caught on camera since 1972. Same face, same clothes, same empty eyes. Some say he guards something. Others say he waits for it to come back. One tomb is older than the rest. It has no name, no plaque, no offerings. Just a deep gash on the stone, as if something inside tried to claw its way out. In 1987, a tour guide touched it. Her hand came back red, but it wasn't paint. They tested it. It was human blood, type AB negative, still warm. Marie Laveau, the voodoo queen, is buried here. People leave gifts on her tomb, draw X marks and whisper wishes. But one girl in 2010 mocked the ritual. She kicked over a candle and laughed. Later that night, she was found face down in her apartment. Skin turned grey, eyes open, nails torn off. Her voicemail had one final recording. A voice, deep, raspy, repeating her name 3 times. Then breathing, then laughter. At night, some tombstones cast the wrong shadow. Not yours, not theirs, but something bent, long, wrong. One tourist swore he saw something watching him through a crack in the tomb. When he leaned in, a breath hit his face. Wet, cold, foul. He turned and ran, but in every photo he took that night, there was a second shadow, even in selfies. Some say there's a gate beneath the cemetery, a spiritual tear, something accidentally opened long ago and never quite closed. The keeper isn't protecting us from what's inside. He's protecting what's inside from getting out. But gates don't hold forever. Some nights, the ground breathes. And if you press your ear to the stone, you'll hear footsteps getting closer.
Story 5. The Whispering Graves of Dudleytown. Real location. Dudleytown Cemetery, Cornwall, Connecticut. Called America's Cursed Town, Dudleytown is no longer a town. Now there are only dense forests, howling winds, and graves hidden in the darkness. I'll tell this story in 5 parts, each one revealing a deeper level of truth. Don't look away, or you'll hear it tonight. In October 1996, 2 college students, Rachel and Dylan, went to Dudleytown for a dare. It was cold, the path was muddy, but they laughed and filmed everything. They reached the old cemetery around midnight. No tombstones, just mounds in the earth. They joked, they drank, until Dylan saw something. At the base of one grave, a patch of dirt was moving. He thought it was an animal. Rachel leaned closer, then she heard it. "Help me." A child's voice, muffled, coming from under the soil. They ran, but Rachel's footage, found years later, showed something behind them. A figure, crouched, no eyes, just a mouth, whispering even as they screamed. Legend says one grave, marked only by a bent oak tree, belongs to a woman named Edith Ralston, buried alive by her husband in 1894. He claimed she was possessed. Hikers who visit that grave never return the same. One man, Aaron Kessler, visited in 2002. He was calm, married, healthy. 2 days later, he was found sitting naked on his porch, eyes wide, skin torn from scratching. He said only one thing, over and over. She opened her mouth, but the scream never stopped. His wife, still missing. Grave number 11 has no date, no name. Locals say each time someone visits, the dirt seems fresher, like someone is still digging. A paranormal team set up cameras overnight. At 3:14 a.m., the footage shows the dirt parting, not from below, but from within the side of the mound. Then a pale hand, long fingers. It doesn't climb out. It drags something in. The next morning, the team's sound engineer, Maya, was missing. Her last recorded words: "Wait, I hear something breathing next to me." In 1943, a mysterious fire swept through part of the forest near Dudleytown Cemetery, but the flames were blue. They didn't burn outward. They burned inward, into the earth. When the fire died, a hole was left, 12 feet deep, no bottom, and from the bottom rose voices, hundreds, screaming in reverse. To this day, if you drop something in, you never hear it land. The town records claim 116 people are buried in Dudleytown. But when investigators brought radar equipment in 2011, they found 143 empty graves. No bones, no wood, just collapsed holes, like the earth had digested them. Worse still, they found fresh footprints near one of the oldest sites, small, barefoot, leading to one grave, a grave that wasn't there the day before. They followed the prints to a patch of grass. It pulsed. It breathed. Then it whispered. Make room. Story 6. The Ghost of Resurrection Mary. Real location: Resurrection Cemetery, Justice, Illinois, United States. It all began in the winter of 1934. The night was cold, the roads slippery. A young woman named Mary, dressed in a delicate white dress, had left a dance hall near Archer Avenue after a fight with her boyfriend. She walked alone into the icy dark. She never made it home. Her body was found 2 days later near the gates of Resurrection Cemetery, broken, frostbitten, and staring upward, with no eyes, just open sockets. Locals say she never left. Since the 1930s, over 50 separate sightings have been reported. Men driving alone down Archer Avenue often see a beautiful girl in a white dress thumbing for a ride. She speaks little. Her skin is cold. When asked where she's going, she always says, "Home, resurrection." Some drivers report that she disappears before reaching the gates. Others say she screams before vanishing, and they feel a handprint burned into the car seat. One of the most chilling incidents happened in 1976. A driver called the police at 2:38 a.m. He claimed to have seen a girl get hit by a passing car outside the cemetery. She rolled onto the ground, didn't move. But when officers arrived, there was no body, no blood, no tire marks. Instead, they found something else. The iron gate of Resurrection Cemetery bore 2 burned handprints. The metal had melted inward, like something, or someone, had grabbed it from the inside, trying to escape. To this day, the handprints have never been removed. Not by sanding, not by repainting. They always return. One man, Henry Zaleski, claimed to have danced with a girl in white at O'Henry Ballroom in 1980. She was radiant, graceful, but when he touched her hand, it was icy. They danced 3 times. Then she whispered, "I have to go now. He's coming." He asked who. She only smiled. As she walked toward the door, he noticed something fall from her dress. A dried rose petal, black as ash. That night, Henry visited Resurrection Cemetery out of curiosity, and at the exact spot, her body was said to have been found. He saw the same petal, still black, still dry, still warm. To this day, locals claim to see Mary near the gates, sometimes weeping, sometimes dancing, sometimes just staring at passing cars. In 2019, a man filmed a figure walking across Archer Avenue at 3 a.m. No footsteps, just the floating figure in white. When he approached, the figure faced him. It had no face, just skin, pulled tight where the eyes and mouth should be. And from the center of its chest, a single hollow voice. "Will you take me home?" Story 7. The Devil's Gate at Stull Cemetery. Real location: Stull Cemetery, Stull, Kansas, USA. The town of Stull, Kansas, doesn't appear on most maps. It once had a post office, a small church, and a graveyard perched on a windswept hill. Today, only the cemetery remains. Locals don't talk about Stull. It's not because they're forgetful, it's because they're afraid. The cemetery is said to be one of the 7 gateways to hell, and that twice a year, on the spring and fall equinox, the gate opens, and something walks out. In 1974, a group of 6 college students decided to visit the church ruins in Stull Cemetery on the spring equinox. They brought candles, a camera, and a Ouija board. The church had no roof, but as the sun set, they swore they saw shadows on the ceiling, shapes that moved as if something was watching from above, even though there was nothing there. At 11:53 p.m., they began the Ouija session. By midnight, 2 of the students were bleeding from their noses. One girl began laughing uncontrollably, and one, the one holding the planchette, whispered, "Something just crawled up from under the tombstone." Then the candles blew out. Only 4 students left that hill. The grave lies near the base of a dead tree, carved with symbols no one has ever translated. Locals call it the Devil's Stone. No grass grows around it, no birds perch nearby, and phones, cameras, or recorders brought close all die instantly. In 1991, a paranormal investigator named Joan Llewellyn tried to spend the night beside it. She was found the next morning, muttering the same phrase over and over. "It walks when you don't look. It walks when you don't look." She never spoke another word. 2 years after Joan Llewellyn's breakdown, her niece, Mary, decided to return to the cemetery to find answers. Mary brought with her a Polaroid camera and a small handheld mirror. She believed that the mirror could catch things the eye could not. She arrived at midnight, the moon hidden behind clouds that didn't move. No wind, no noise, only silence so dense it pressed against her skin. Mary held up the mirror near the Devil's Stone. For a moment, she saw nothing. Then, a flicker, a silhouette, not standing behind her, but standing inside the mirror. Its head tilted, twitching. No face, just a mass of swirling dark. Mary screamed, dropping the mirror, but before it shattered on the stone, she heard a voice, not in her ears, but inside her mind. "You can't see me, unless I want you to." She was found hours later, wandering along the highway barefoot, whispering to her own reflection, After Mary disappeared for the second time, her case caught the attention of a small investigative podcast called Grave Whispers, hosted by Ethan Moore, a man known for chasing the supernatural. He wasn't a believer at first, but he was drawn to Stull Cemetery after listening to a tape Mary had recorded during one of her therapy sessions. On the tape, Mary was speaking in a language no one could identify. Her voice, not entirely her own, grew lower, raspier, until it stopped sounding human. Ethan drove to Kansas with a camera crew and permission from local authorities. They entered the cemetery at 11:50 p.m., intending to do a live recording from inside the chapel ruins. At 12 a.m. sharp, the microphones began to buzz violently, feedback screaming in their ears. Then silence. From the playback, a voice, one none of them had spoken, whispering in broken English, "Leave the name or stay forever." The next day, only 2 crew members were found outside the cemetery, their memories blank after midnight. Ethan and the third man were never seen again. But on the last camera roll, there was one final photo, a figure standing in front of a headstone. No face, no shadow, no name on the grave. Just this, scrawled into the stone: "I am the one they forget. I remember all of you." The story of Stull Cemetery is old. Older than the church ruins, older than Kansas itself. Before the first settlers arrived, Native American tribes refused to step foot near that land, calling it the mouth of the Starless One. But one man did. In 1853, Dr. Elias Granger, a theology professor from Boston, came to Stull with only one goal: to build a chapel on cursed land and test if evil could be contained by faith. He succeeded in building the chapel, but no one saw him leave again. Years later, after a lightning strike burned the roof off the chapel, locals discovered something buried beneath the altar, a pit lined with ash and bone that seemed bottomless. They tried to fill it with dirt. It swallowed everything. Then one night, a local boy, Thomas Bell, dared to lower a burning stick into the pit. Instead of lighting the hole, the fire reversed direction. The flames curled upward against gravity, reaching for the boy's face. He screamed. By the time his father pulled him back up, Thomas's hair had turned completely white. He never spoke again. Every Halloween after that, people said they saw red flames flickering from the hole, even though no one lit anything. Some claim that the flames are souls trying to escape, but always pulled back down. Others say that something down there breathes, and the fire is just it exhaling. The last known survivor to have entered the pit beneath the Stull Chapel and come back, if you can call it that, was a man named Caleb Torrance, a gravekeeper no one remembered hiring. He just appeared one day. He spoke little, avoided townsfolk, but every night people passing by the cemetery swore they saw him standing beside the old stone well, speaking downward into it, like someone, or something, was answering. Then one night in late October, screams were heard from the chapel ruins. When locals arrived, Caleb was gone, but in his shack near the cemetery gate, a notebook was found. No one knows who wrote the first entry. The handwriting changed over time, from neat and scholarly to shaking, then wild and erratic, as if the writer's mind was unraveling. They don't rest down there, they wait. They talk to each other through dirt and bone. There are names on the tombstones that change every night. They asked me to give them my name. I almost did. God help me. I almost did. The final page? A drawing, crude, scratch deep into the page. A face stretched wide open, like screaming, but no eyes. And behind it, the chapel and the pit, with something climbing out. The sheriff who found the notebook resigned the next day. The notebook itself, lost in evidence archives along with Caleb's file, which no one seems able to find anymore. But some say, on the anniversary of his disappearance, if you stand at the broken arch of the chapel at midnight, you'll hear scratching beneath your feet, and if you stay too long, it will remember your name. The cemetery is never an end. It's a place where everything begins again, in a way we can't understand. Thank you everyone for listening until the end. If you find today's story interesting, don't forget to leave a like, a share, and follow me, so you don't miss the next scary stories. Wishing you all a peaceful night, and good night, if possible.